Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the KeithAndrewNetwork, and as a very special episode, it is Season 10, 911. Today, we sit down with professional upcoming actor. Won't say who, don't just those knobs, but those knobs replicate every season of the KeithAndrewNetwork. And as we are heading to Season 9, this June 10th, will be officially the 9-year anniversary. But if you look at those numbers, if you want to go back to YouTube, hit that bell icon, you'll be notified brand new episodes are up and ready of the KeithAndrewNetwork. Well, it's all 9 years of the KeithAndrewNetwork and all 10 seasons. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to start off with the first question. So stay tuned.
Hello, this is Emerson Buchholz, and I'm an actor in New York City, and welcome to travel all around the world. And I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew, and it was just a terrific experience. He's an amazing guy, had some really incisive questions, and it was really fun. So I hope you like it.
All right, so the first question I want to ask you is about icebreakers, a new thing for the KeithAndrewNetwork. Icebreakers. So the first question I want to ask you is, tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do now.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Emerson Buchholz. I grew up on the West Coast in Washington State and in a rural area outside of Seattle, and went to university as a young man and studied acting, and then moved to Seattle and thought I really wanted to be a professional actor. This was back in the late 70s and the early 80s. And so when I moved to Seattle, I got some work. I was in some plays. I did some singing and dancing. I even toured in a ballet. And but I realized, well, I don't know if I realized it or not, but it became evident that I wasn't emotionally prepared to be an actor. The anxiety of auditioning and the uncertainty of where the next job was going to come, I just wasn't ready to deal with all of that. And so an opportunity came up for me to start working in healthcare. And so I left acting behind, always thinking that I would get back to it. But I worked in that field for 25, 30 years. A lot of time went by. And it got to the point, I love theater. And I got to the point where I didn't even want to go see plays anymore. It just made me sad because I kept thinking, I'm not going to do this. I can't be up there. I just didn't feel like I had any options. And so fast forward until 2019, I moved to New York, and it occurred to me, I'm retired from healthcare now. So I thought, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And it became clear, of course, I want to get back into performing. And so I started auditioning, and just in time for the pandemic to hit, right? And but I started, so I took some classes online during the pandemic when the lockdown was happening to kind of get my skills back and to really start thinking the way I needed to think as an actor. And auditioned. I've done 6 or 7 films in the last couple of years, and in the last 12 months alone, I've done, I think, 5 plays. And so it's been, I feel so grateful and so fortunate. And the background message I have is, it's never too late.
No, absolutely. And it's all in your head. You're never too old to learn anything brand new. My grandfather used to say, never retire. You can retire when you're dead, but while you're alive, you should do what you love. He didn't say that, but I'm just adding on to it. But it's true, there's no reason why you have to retire. There's some things like if you're a professional wrestler, you can't do it anymore. But acting, there's all ages out there for acting. But you did hit one thing on the head. You mentioned your passion for acting, and you mentioned you worked in healthcare and then going back into acting. What made you go to healthcare, and what made you feel so passionate about getting back into acting?
Yeah, it's a funny story. The reason how I got into healthcare by accident. I was in the musical version of Two Gentlemen of Verona, and I was hired by the Parks Department in a suburban county of Seattle, outside of Seattle, to tour around during the summer. And we performed in parks, and we went to schools. We actually even performed in the mall, and it was a good gig. And we had some groupies, which was really weird. And so we had a few people who came to every performance or many of the performances. And I was realizing that I'd been supporting myself being a waiter, and I didn't really want to do that anymore when I wasn't acting. So when the summer job with the theater, with touring with the show was done, I knew I needed a job. So I just started telling everyone. And I actually told the groupies just by chance, because I was telling everyone I need a job. If you know of anyone who's looking to hire someone, that would be great. And this one groupie was a friend of mine. And it got to be September. So we had maybe one or two performances left, and then we were going to be done. And I got a call from my friend who said, so I have a call from this guy, his name was Tim, and he said, if you can start on Monday, he'll hire you. And I said, well, doing what? He says, well, you'd be like a receptionist in a health clinic. And so it was actually an HIV testing clinic, as it turns out. And I said, okay. And so I started working in that clinic, and before long, I moved through. After about a year, I moved into doing infectious disease counseling and testing, HIV and STD screening. And then I did health education. I developed some advertising campaigns promoting condom use, primarily for teenagers. And I'm very proud of that program. We actually wrote a paper that got published. And then I started doing other things in health. I worked for the director of public health doing communications, which, had a theatrical component for sure. There was lots of on-camera work. And then I started working in the jail system. I managed health operations. So it just happened by accident. I built, I just strove to be better and better, built a career out of it. The reason I got back into acting, I think I mentioned before, it just was something I always wanted to do. And suddenly I was in New York, and I really didn't even know that there was TV and film here. I thought it was only theater, and I thought it was only Broadway. And it turns out, of course, because I'd not really been to New York before, and maybe one time when I was young. So I just started auditioning, found out that there's off-Broadway and there's off-Broadway, and it seems like there's hundreds of theaters in New York City, and so many films being filmed here, short films, feature films, of course, television shows as well. So I just went for it, and I'm not looked back. I've never been happier.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to ask you is, how has the pandemic impacted your career, and how did you overcome it? And let's look at it like this: how did it impact your career, and how did you use it to your benefit?
Well, I think it's using it to my benefit's a work in progress. But I guess I studied, and I started studying and working and building a network of other actors. How it impacts it seems like how the pandemic has impacted auditioning is that almost everything starts out with a self-recorded audition. And I think that's here to stay. So I've had to learn how to, record myself, and what are some of the tips and tricks to be successful at that. And then during the most intense lockdown time, even the callback auditions, and there weren't many because there wasn't a lot going on then, even the callback auditions were done on Zoom or sometimes FaceTime. And it just makes it really hard. I personally find it hard to connect. I had to learn to connect emotionally with people over Zoom, to be able to sell myself for a particular role. I always feel like if I can go in person, uh, it, it's easier for me, and everyone's different, but that's just how it is for me. So it's been that there's just a bunch of ongoing learning that I'm having to engage about how to manage that process. And I'm getting better and better. There's a lot more to learn for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing I did want to pursue more and be a little more persistent, I didn't say this to you on Messenger, you have over 1,000 people following you. And then it isn't just directed at you. I need to be everyone who has a couple thousand, a couple, 2,000, 3,000. I'm like, okay, so you have a strong following. But we do the interview, you don't get any freaking views. It's like no views, no comments. So I'm wondering, are those people following you bots, or they're not really, they're just there to support you? So the next one I want to ask you is social media. Can it make you or break you? Because you're an example, I'm an example. I have thousands of people, following me, but they follow you to an extent. Do you think with your Instagram following, those people will support you no matter what? Or do you think there's a limit?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I have a little bit more than 10.3 thousand followers. Almost all of them are actors, directors, dancers, performers. I do my very best to screen out the bots, the Bitcoin, the people who are promoting their OnlyFans page, all that sort of stuff. And so these are real followers. My mission is to be an artist supporting other artists, and I feel strongly that there's enough for everyone, and that we don't have to compete with each other in an unhealthy or negative way. And so that's what I offer people, and I appreciate when that's offered back as well. Yeah, I think that there are lots of people who are of my followers who really aren't, on a daily basis on Instagram. They're not as engaged, and yeah, I'd like to figure out how to really build that. On the other side of it, that it's I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm really trying to build a network that supports me, that I can support others through. And I have to say that two of the film roles that I've been cast in the last year I've been cast because of people that I'm connected with on Instagram, and they've seen my video, my acting reel, and one interviewed me, one didn't, but I was cast in their films as a result of that. And so that's my mission, is to support people and to continue to build that as part of my grant.
No, I feel the same way, and I do have a couple great ideas for you off the air. But it's all about networking, and it's just a number thing. It's kind of like you have 1,000 people, so say, okay, we did an interview. I'm not saying, I'm not expecting, and I talk with my hands, of course I haven't. I'm not expecting 1,000 views. I'm expecting, maybe 100 of them, 50 or something. 50 is as small as 100 the maximum. If they will follow you, they're following you for a reason. So I don't understand why they're just, I know you're in the same network as they're doing, you're in the same business, but if you're following someone, wouldn't you want to hear what they have to talk about? Don't you want to support their interview? It's kind of like, why are you doing this, and why are you posting this, or auditioning for this role? And it's kind of like, let me ask this for your acting. A lot of people like to say, oh, I'm really great at these auditions, but wouldn't it help if you have a solid fan base saying, these people will come out and support me no matter what, no matter if it's a big role, a small role, these people I can fall back on and knowing they would always support me. So it's always amazing where you say, oh, this is so great, my numbers are going up, but yet when you do something sensational, like something solid, it doesn't really balance out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think, I think that social media is overwhelming.
It is.
As an older person, I didn't grow up, looking at a screen like that. I looked except for a TV screen. So I think there's, if someone has hundreds of followers, even let alone 1,000, it's impossible to follow them in an attentive way. There's too much content, and it's overwhelming. And so I think that there are lots of, I think that I'm definitely interested in looking how I can be a better partner with the people that I follow and the people that follow me on social media. It's just this huge overwhelming thing, I think, at least from my perspective, and probably from a lot of people.
No, absolutely. So the next question I want to ask you is, what is the biggest change you want to make in your acting career? Do you just want to be an actor? Did you want to also have open doors for you for being voiceovers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am increasingly interested in, I really enjoy working in the theater and working with a live audience. So, I also like doing film. It's just a very different thing. The thing about theater is you have this rehearsal process, and there's these in-person relationships with other performers and the director and the tech people that I just find really satisfying. In film, you sometimes you show up, you've never met the people you're working with before in person, and you're playing the role that you're playing, and sometimes they film you without the other people even there, which is fine. It's how the medium is done. In terms of voiceover, I'm interested in it. It's not something that I'm putting any energy into right now. I'm just really focusing on how I can be emotionally expressive on stage and on film in a way that connects with other performers and connects with the audience. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's really what I focused on.
Oh, absolutely. Next one, I'm gonna ask you two questions. One, if I look down, I'm not like ignoring you. I'm not trying to read the script. One parts of my disabilities is a couple of my seasons. I'm like, I'm just gonna have diarrhea of the mouth. If it pops in my head, throw it. And I'm like, you know what? I want to show people I can overcome one of my disabilities, and I am dyslexic, and part of my disability, and reading and script is part of that. So I tried to change it up. But the two questions I want to ask you is, what are some of the best acting advice you have gotten, and what are some of your career highlights?
Right. Okay. Well, one of the best pieces of acting advice I got. I study at Schreiber Studio in Manhattan, and Peter Jensen, who's the artistic director, I think that's his title. We're taking a class, and there's lots of different approaches to acting, and oftentimes the people who promote those approaches feel, naturally very strongly about them. But Peter told me, and he said, whatever works, take pieces of this, pieces of that, whatever works for you, and use it. If a certain strategy doesn't work for you, do something else. And so that's been incredibly freeing, that I don't have to follow a particular mold. I don't have to, and certainly I really like to try out different strategies so that I can build kind of an arsenal of approaches to different things. So I think that's the advice one. In terms of career highlights, in theater, earlier in the year, I was fortunate enough to have been cast and perform in a streaming production of the New York premiere of a play called Arizona, which is about a husband and wife who, in their retirement, go to the southern border of the United States to volunteer as Minutemen. And it's a uncomfortable play about racism and sexism and other isms. But I think it's beautifully written, has a profoundly important message, and I was thrilled to be a part of it. And I have to say that another highlight is the play that I'm in right now. It just opened last night as part of the Chain Theater's one-act festival. The play is called A Place for Us, and we're paired with another play called For Our Very Own by Emma Lefkowitz. Our play is by Anthony Laura. It's a absurd piece about this family of three, husband, wife, and daughter. And this young woman walks into their house. They'd never met her before, and claims she lives there and that it's her house. And it's about how they respond to that and the things that it brings out in each other. And so it's beautifully written by Anthony Laura, and he's a wonderful director as well. I've loved working with him. So if anyone's interested in seeing it, they just have to go to www.chaintheater.org. We're in program 1. Come out and see us. There's also a streaming option if you're interested. So.
No, absolutely.
Oh, and I have to say that there's a couple of films that I've been particularly particularly thrilled that I was in. One, I got to play this guy named Jonathon in this film called Elite Match. It's about an over 50s dating group. And I had to speak badly in both Mandarin and Cantonese, which are languages that I know. So I had to learn to speak these few lines. It's the way that my character impressed the Asian women that he was attracted to. And then I also was in this terrific film, which is in post-production right now. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it. The name of it, how terrible of me. I'll think of it. It's by Ginger Pants Productions. I played this ex-detective child molester guy. And
yeah, that's always fun to play.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to play it creepy. But the Ginger Daniels, who was the producer, and she wrote the script and starred in it as well, is really really amazing. And I'm sorry that I can't remember the name of it at this moment. I'm just a little flustered, but it was a highlight.
Well, let me ask you this one. If they're simple questions, I'm gonna do with 2 at 1. So the first one I ask you is, what is your claim to fame, and what are you most likely to become famous for?
My claim to fame. What is my claim to fame? Oh, I don't know. I can throw an orange in the air and catch it without looking at it directly. It's part of my juggling training, so I can casually catch an orange. It sounds like a weird thing, but it's a party favorite. And then what will I become famous for? Probably physical comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny you should mention throwing in the orange and just randomly just catching it. It's kind of like a Dragon Ball where Trunks throws his sword in, and he just turns his neck and his sword goes right back into the holder. It's like, oh, that's impressive if you can do that. If you're not, you gotta lose a head.
Yeah, I'm not brave enough to try a sword, but yeah, I can juggle, and so throwing an orange in the air, not looking at it, just catching it casually, that's my claim to fame.
That's good. Now, the other question I want to ask you is doing the roundup. Let's see. So I want to ask you a good one. Make sure I don't leave any parts out. Now, the first one I'm going to ask you is, do you have any success stories?
In terms of acting?
Yes, and in your entire career.
Oh, yes, definitely. I think I think I feel like my biggest success story is that I took charge of my life and started doing what I really love doing, which is acting and performing after so long as an older gentleman. And for me, it was being really brave to audition and just put myself out there, not really knowing at the time what I was getting myself into. So I think that that's my my biggest success story, and I'm still rolling with it and still trying to do that every day.
Absolutely. So really turn it into a hashtag, absolutely. Force a habit of mine, but whatever, if it fits, everyone has their own niche. But the last two questions, last two questions I'm going to ask you is what is coming up on the horizon for you, and how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you? That's part one. And let's do part one first. Are you on social media? And what's
Yes.
coming up on the horizon for you?
Yeah. So Instagram is the social media that I mostly am active on, although I have a Facebook account as well. So people are welcome to follow me. My handle is Emerson A Buchholz actor. And so maybe you can put that in the comments or something. So that's the best way to reach me. People are welcome to DM me and let me know what's going on. And what was the second part of your question?
Oh, are you on social media? And what's coming up on the horizon for you?
Oh yeah. So I have a film booked coming up. We're going to be filming it in May. I don't. It's untitled at the moment. I know that my character's name is Uncle Chuck, and I'm meeting with the director tomorrow, so I'll learn more about it then. Right now, that's what I have booked, but I have a lot of irons in the fire in terms of auditioning, and I'm hoping. My dream is to. I would love to work for the Public Theater in their summer Shakespeare, so I'm going to be auditioning for that this week, and I'm auditioning for off-Broadway and Broadway shows.
Absolutely. Now the last question, a bonus question, how I always end all my episodes. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now, and would you recommend it to other people?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'm not very experienced at doing podcasts, and so I was really nervous. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, but you persuaded me because you seem like a very nice guy, and you're super persistent. You kept following up with me, so that was really good. And it's in terms of how do I feel now, it was much easier than I expected, and you made me feel really comfortable.
I appreciate that. For me, being persistent is one of my kind of downfalls, is because I can be a real pain in the ass too.
Potato, it's good or bad, but it was helpful.
That's true. Now, with that being said, and for people out there, you're on Facebook and you're on Instagram. Are you also on Twitter and LinkedIn?
Yes, I actually am on Twitter as Emerson Buchholz. I'm not very active there in terms of posting, but I like to follow folks and see what's happening in the world. I like to follow journalists, and I do have an account on LinkedIn as Emerson Buchholz as well, and I use that occasionally for business purposes. Contacting a casting director or something like that, or an agent. But I don't post very much there. So Instagram is really the main thing.
Well, all of that will be in the description box, but I do have a couple questions for you off the air.
Okay.
If anyone's watching on YouTube, hit the bell icon. You will be notified on brand new episodes and content. So the Keith Andrew Network that will be posted. This video will be shared on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Our goal is to get over 100 and more views. Leave comments. We would love to hear from you. But wrapping up the interview segment, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And until we meet again, Catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.